guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm bringing you a review of a new sci-fi novel. This is Do You Dream of Terra-Two by Temi Oh. So this is a debut sci-fi novel, and I just knew that it was going to be my exact cup of tea. I knew this was going to be the exact kind of book that I loved. I put it in my most recent 5-star predictions video, and I was correct. It was a fantastic book. I absolutely loved this. Just a couple of things to get out of the way first. This is a spoiler-free review, so that if you're worried about spoilers, you're not going to find any here. And also, this is a book that I bought on my own. It was not sent for review. I just happened to have loved it so much, and I really wanted to talk about it that I'm filming this review now. Do You Dream of Terra-Two is sort of set in almost like an alternate version of our timeline. It takes place in 2012, and things are very different from the 2012 that we would recognize. There is this planet called Terra-Two, which is a very Earth-like planet that was discovered many, many years ago, and it is the sort of perfect place for humans to colonize, and this book focuses on the group of astronauts that is going to Terra-Two to actually colonize it. So this crew is made up of two different groups of people. One is a very young group of people who are all students who are kind of drafted into this academy for very gifted students. They've been working for this for almost their entire lives from a very young age, and they've been handpicked to be aboard this crew, and the other half are sort of much more seasoned astronauts who are sort of veterans of the 20th century space race. So at this point in time, we have been to Mars. We have not colonized Mars, but we have been to Mars, we have been to Jupiter, but we have not left the solar system. So this is going to be the very first crew that does leave. This book really focuses on the young people, and the young people in the crew, either before they leave Earth and after they are on board the ship, sort of to leave the solar system for the very first time. So we get to see sort of their points of view of being these people who are sort of plucked from the population, have been told that they're the best of the best, and actually going on the mission that has essentially been their life's work. Everything that they've been doing has come to this moment. And it's going to be a 23-year mission, and if anything goes wrong, no one can save them, because as soon as they leave Jupiter, they are out of reach of help. They are out of reach of anywhere that humans have ever been before. So I've seen a lot of comparisons to Becky Chambers' books. I think that the two books that it's compared to is Becky Chambers and The 100. And I don't really know what The 100 is. It's either a book or a TV show or both or something. I don't know what that is, but Becky Chambers I know very well because she's one of my favorites. And I think that that is slightly misleading, because if you think of Becky Chambers, you think of, you know, huge galactic communities. You think of alien species living with humans in harmony, and you think of kind of the minutia of everyday life for these people. And only one of those things is really relevant here. And it's the way that these characters really live in their day-to-day lives in this extraordinary situation that is similar to Becky Chambers. So I feel like it's an appropriate comparison, but it's not necessarily one that will kind of give you a really good idea of what this book is about. I love the sort of setting for this book. I love the kind of alternate timeline because it's very familiar, especially if you're someone like me who is very much kind of obsessed with space. Like, as soon as we get space tourism, like, I'm the first person signing up to go to Mars. And so you have this sort of Britain that is obsessed with space. These students have been learning about Terra-Two literally their entire lives because it was discovered in the 20th century, and it's just a really, really fascinating way of making the world feel very familiar, and it's almost like the world as it would be if we were still as interested in space and going to space and exploring space as we were in, say, the 60s after the moon landing, or, you know, through the 80s. And it's a really interesting way to think of the world, because it's the way that I would prefer the world to be, because I think that space is the coolest thing ever. I love a bleak sci-fi novel, and this book does have a lot of hope in it because, of course, it's all about exploration and about these people doing this amazing thing. However, we know that going into this, they are going to be out of reach of help. We know that they are going to be out of reach of other humans. It's people who are leaving space for the first time and the kind of implications of that, and I find that really, really fascinating, and I think that's one of the things that Temi did incredibly well. This book is all about the characters. It's really, really all about the characters, and we get multiple points of view, which I know some people are a little bit iffy on, but it's something that I happen to enjoy because she does it really, really well. I didn't think that there was one character who had a more interesting story than others, even the kind of horrible one who I hated. There's one character I hated who you're supposed to hate, who's just awful but is still fascinating, is still really, really interesting. I think that we really happen to focus on the women who are on board, and there's one particular boy who's in a really interesting situation, and it's just done in such an incredibly interesting way, because it is very similar to the way that Becky Chambers handles characters, and I do think that this is where that comparison is very appropriate. It focuses really on what these people are going through, what their mental state is, and how they're dealing with it. And some people are dealing with it really well, and other people are not dealing with it very well. I think my favorite character in this book, and there were a few to choose from, but I think my favorite character was Astrid, and Astrid is the girl who is kind of, I feel the most invested in going to Terra-Two. She dreams about Terra-Two. She feels like she's been there before. She's been on the shores. She's, you know, run through the forests. And the way that that is kind of worked into the story is really interesting, because to me, it feels like it's almost got this slight magical realism quality to it. And I guess the question is whether or not she's actually dreaming of this planet and that's what this planet is going to be like, or if she's just kind of, you know, in her own head. And I thought that was really, really fascinating. I think that in a lot of ways, even though, you know, nobody is perfect in this book, in a lot of ways Astrid reminded me a lot of myself because of this absolute fascination that I have with space and like absolutely adoring space and space exploration. I also really enjoyed her sister Juno, who is another character that we get a lot of focus on, and she's definitely the much more kind of logic-based sister, and she's very much all about rules and regulations, and she really wants the chance to start life anew for the entire human race on Terra-Two. Her goal is to kind of create this wonderful community that would correct a lot of the mistakes that mankind has made, including things like war and greed and all of that, and she was really, really interesting to follow. I also really enjoyed Jesse, who's kind of in this really weird position in that he was not initially chosen to be on the crew. He was on the backup crew, but through other circumstances he makes it onto the ship, and it's really a fascinating dynamic between not only him, because he's kind of the outsider, but between all of the crew members, because in a way no one really understands each other. It's all a very superficial understanding, because although they've all known each other for so long, because they've all been in this school together, they've studied together, they've essentially grown up together, they've all been parts of different social circles, and they all have this very superficial understanding of each other because a lot of their sort of, you know, issues and mental health and whatnot they keep inside. So no one is perfect in this book, and I really, really liked that. Do You Dream of Terra-Two is probably one of my favorite books that I've read this year so far, and although it's only April, I think that you're probably going to end up seeing it on my Best Books of 2019 video, because it is such a spectacularly well done read. Because not only does it take the sort of fascination with space that someone like myself has, and that a lot of people have, sort of mankind has always been very interested in the stars, but it sort of shows you the reality of what that would probably be like. It is cold, it is brutal, it is lonely, and seeing your home that you have always known disappearing through the window is a terrifying experience, and I think she captures that really, really well. For me, this was a 5-star read for sure. I absolutely loved this book. I thought it was just phenomenal. It was so well done and so well written and so interesting as well. So I would highly recommend it if you like kind of books about space exploration, if you like books about sort of characters and how characters survive together in a very sort of confined environment, which is always really interesting to me. And I know that it is maybe a little bit more of a quiet novel. There is a lot of, you know, things that happen, but it does feel very quiet because it's a lot of sort of internal thoughts and how people are dealing with situations. I think that it just flies by, and it's so interesting, and it's just so good. So in the comments below, I would love to hear what you thought of this book, if you've read it, or if it's in your TBR, if it's something that you're interested in reading. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.